This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here today with a gentleman I haven't seen in quite some time, but I have been enjoying his wines a great deal in the interim time period. I'm here with winemaker Alex Dale, who is joining us from Radford Dale in South Africa. How are you today, sir?
Fantastic. Top form, believe it or not.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I'm speaking to you, we're halfway through February now, but if I were to rewind 12 months, how were things in your life just before the first COVID case was discovered in South Africa on March the 5th of last year?
Well, obviously, for us, that's vintage time.
Yeah.
Best time of the year. It's our summer. Things were looking good, actually. We'd had a very good year before then. South African wines have been really building momentum,
Yeah.
particularly at the premium end. In a lot of the main markets around the world, so the UK, States, even in Canada and particularly in Ontario, I think we're starting to see some really good recognition for our better wines through vintages and in the on-trade. So we were beginning to be in a pretty good space, I have to say, and I think without even the effects of nostalgia and rose-tinted lenses, it was nice. And also we'd come to the end of our very prolonged and very severe drought. We had our first vintage without drought in 2020.
Right.
First time in 5 years we hadn't had the impact of the drought, although the soils and the vines hadn't had completely the time to recover. They have done now because we had another winter in between, which was a wet winter. So, but we were optimistic again, actually. It was all good.
And then things changed. How did the pandemic, the imminent pandemic, impact your harvest?
Well, we as a winery philosophically work very naturally, and we tend to, and have done for a very long time, we tend to work on much lower sugars, so much lower potential alcohols, fresher wines, higher acidity, natural acidity, so we don't acidify, natural ferments, etc. So we've always driven the vine to an equilibrium which allows you to have maturity at lower sugar levels. So we pick earlier than most people, to put it simply.
So how much?
So we're usually the first people.
So how much fruit?
We'd almost finished.
Oh wow! Okay, all right, okay.
Probably 95 to 98%. 98% of the vintage was done for us.
Right.
That was the point I was trying to make. We were almost done with picking. We had a couple of parcels that we picked afterwards, but obviously we still had ferments going. Yeah. Ferments can go weeks. Sometimes they even go for months. Because of wild ferments. It's less predictable. And you always get some barrels that take longer than others.
Of course.
So, or tanks. So the way it impacted on us is that initially there was a blanket ban, and because the wine industry in South Africa, unlike other producing countries in the world, wine industry is not considered an essential activity here, and we were all banned from leaving our houses. So right up until not even the 11th hour, right up until the 12th hour, we thought we were going to lose our crop, all the ferments, because we were banned from exiting our homes.
So you were unable to tend the ferment, basically.
Yeah. As the deadline, that hadn't happened, which was about to happen, and then literally with hours to spare, our industry body managed to get a concession out of government, which is probably the only one we've got, that we could finish vintage.
Right.
Otherwise, it would have been spoiled.
Right.
The psychological pressure. Sorry, when you have an outbreak of a pandemic, you have to deal with all sorts of things that you've never encountered before. And then on top of that, when you think your livelihood is going to go down the drain, and the pressure that put on us was unthinkable at that point.
Literally down the drain, and with regards to those ferments. One move that your government made that I was most surprised with, and I was questioning it all the time, was the sale and movement of alcohol was prohibited, right?
Oh God, I was hoping we weren't going to talk about that.
Sorry. I always do my research on these things.
It's one of the most self-destructive measures ever taken by any government for any wine producing country in the world, as far as I can work it out. And I've talked about this with people all over the planet.
Right.
In the last soon to be 11 months, so let's say 10 and a half months, we've had 3 alcohol bans, which obviously includes wine. And that ban means the transport of wine is forbidden and the sale of wine is forbidden. And cumulatively, we've had over 5 months. So it's exactly half of the time that we've been under.
Wow.
Well, since the first case, or since it really broke out on a scale, half of the time we've not been allowed to sell wine. The very first ban at the end of March, for reasons only known to the government, they also banned exports.
Yes, that was one.
So not only did we become the only country in the world that had a total ban on the sale of wine in its own market, but very destructively, and I think there are ideological reasons why they did this and political reasons which are unique to South Africa. They banned all producers from selling anything overseas as well, which is just absolutely nuts.
So how did the pandemic over the course of the last, say, 10, 11 months impact your sales, given that the government had implemented so many prohibitive measures when it came to the sales of alcohol?
So I'll answer that from the perspective of the industry and then our own. South Africa sells 50% of all of its wines in South Africa.
Right.
So for the wineries that sell a lot of wine in the domestic market, it's absolutely devastating when your home market, your biggest market, is overnight it becomes illegal. You become a criminal if you sell a bottle of wine. That's like any other job that may exist in the economy, and overnight you're forbidden to do it. What do you do? So it's really devastating for a lot of wineries. From our perspective, we are 85% focused on export markets. So South Africa is our 3rd biggest market. So we sell to 40 countries around the world. And I've done that since I started the business 22 years ago, because I like to spread our risk. If you're over-dependent on any single market, then when something happens out of your control, then you're stuffed. So we've been very good at spreading our risk. But also because we've always sold predominantly into the on-trade, the restaurant trade, in a country like South Africa, it's very limited in terms of the population that spends money on premium South African wines in restaurants.
Yes, yeah.
So it's been necessary for us to build a following globally or internationally, rather than just depending on our domestic market. So we've done fine, actually. It was very scary, particularly when the export ban happened. We didn't know what was going to happen, and particularly because we sell to the restaurant trade mainly, I've had to readjust our strategy, which we've been very good at doing, actually. And funnily enough, one of the markets that's been the strongest in terms of growth for us in the last year has been Ontario. We've had a whole host of listings at vintages, and so we've done incredible. We've had our best year ever in Ontario.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a.
So we love Ontario. I mean, we like Canada as a whole, obviously, and there's lots happening for us across many provinces in Canada. We're actually doing quite nicely, comparatively speaking.
Well, what is available in Ontario right now, and what's just about to be released?
We've got a number. You know how it works in vintages. Yeah. You're in for a month or two, and then you're out. And unless you've got repeated wines, it can be very haphazard. But we have we make 2 ranges of wines, well, actually 3 ranges of wines. Radford is the name of our winery, and it's our major focus. It's the name of the founders, myself and Ben Radford, and it's 2/3 of what we do. And then our house wines, if you like, which same philosophy but much better value. It's called the Winery of Good Hope. Yeah. So the Winery of Good Hope, we've got the Winery of Good Hope Chenin Blanc Bush Vine, which is launching in vintages.
I know it's very soon.
Being launched in March, I think it is. Yeah, March. There you go. At 14 bucks, $13.95.
Right. So,
And
so
then,
very accessible. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea of the Good Hope wines, is that they are, they're the same philosophy as Radford, the same winemaking approach, but these are everyday drinking wines. Yeah. Handmade still. We're not a big producer. These are not commercially, huge volumes at all. And this is the wine of Good Hope, Chenin Blanc, bush vine Chenin Blanc. We are Chenin Blanc specialists, and it's from Stellenbosch. It's not a generic wine. It's from our most prestigious wine region, and it's still under $14. So it's amazing value, and that's the whole idea of the Good Hope wines. Yeah, we often have our Radford Vinum Chenin Blanc. That's in the market at least twice a year. That retails at about $18.95 if I remember correctly. We've got a release coming out in April. That's been a very successul wine for us for many years in Ontario, but just globally. Again, that's a Chenin Blanc. Like I said, we're specialists in Chenin. It's old bush vines, that repeatedly, and consistently gets sort of 92 to 94 points in major international critics, for what that's worth. For those people who care about points. But again, crucially, it's at a really good value for money. And we've got two releases this year, one in April, one in November. Actually, I'm drinking the 2020, which we just bottled.
Nice.
I'll come back to if you like. And then our third range, if you like, is a social upliftment project that we've been working on now for almost 15 years. And it's called Land of Hope. And that project I set up to provide private education, high-level education, for the children and dependents of our Black staff, essentially, because the educational system in South Africa is shockingly bad.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
And it's one of the things that's actually deteriorating democracy. If you take the United Nations measures of standards of education in maths and sciences, South Africa is in the lowest 3 in the world. So Zimbabwe, Bangladesh, countries like that are higher than South Africa since the educational system here has just gone down the toilet. So we pay for our Black staff, children and dependents to go to the best private schools. And that's our contribution over and above their career paths and their salaries to redressing past injustices and giving the next generation a real leg up. And it does a lot of good. It's fantastic, and the wines are really good. So there are sort of a lot of tokenism projects, to be honest with you, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to do something which the wines were the biggest priority, and you wouldn't necessarily know that it's a social upliftment project, that it's an educational project. That's a sort of a backstory. The wines are just superb.
And you said that's been 15 years.
Just bottled our 2020 Pinot Noir.
You said that's been 15 years.
So it was So we started this, way before any of this became à la mode.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. No, you also make another bottling, or a couple of bottlings, that I've not asked you about yet. Pierce Predom, tell me where you're at with that, if you're still speaking to each other, that is.
Oh, what a strange question. Of course we are. That's actually, you asked me what wines we have in the market. I should have started with that, in fact, because they're in the market 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
So Pierce Predom are two friends of mine who are, I think, quite famous sommeliers in your part of the world.
Oh, yes.
So they probably don't need an introduction from me. And we've been working on this project together for 5 years now, where we decided that we wanted to work together to uplift the reputation of South African wines, specifically in the on-trade, so the restaurant sector in Canada. And so we positioned it at a really good level so that restaurants can afford to open and serve it by the glass. We've never changed the price upwards. We've refined the quality and the style. And it's been an absolute joy working with the guys, because on 4 occasions they've actually come down to South Africa and they've helped us with the blend. And it's not just us making up this story about us and putting their name on the label, and we make the wine and they're not involved. They are very involved, and they come down to South Africa every year, and we work on the blends together. All the different vineyards, you know, we visit the vineyards, we taste the different batches, we ferment them differently, and we work this out by working together. So these are fantastic wines. There's a Chenin Blanc, of course, and then there's a Cinsault Syrah, which is it's probably two of the varieties that work the best in our geology and our climate. One an underdog, one more famous, and it's a really good blend. Unfortunately, the last vintage we had to put together ourselves because
of course,
travel bans and what have you. So what we did is we air freighted a whole bunch of bottle samples.
Oh, nice. Good.
And then Messrs. Pierce and Predom organized the tasting with a bunch of guys over there, and they did their blendings on that side, and we did it on our side, and we came to, you know, the same consensus that we would have done if we'd been together, and we put the blend together. So,
fantastic.
Yeah, so these are in the market all the time. It's not just for restaurants. You know, a lot of private people have been buying it, particularly in the last year.
Yes.
The restaurant closed. And we haven't seen any drop in our sales, which is remarkable because it's meant to be for restaurants. Yeah, so the guys are doing well with it.